Hello, today I'm going to teach you something that I think is really cool. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how to read and use a sewing pattern. Um, but first off, we got to talk about what the purpose of a sewing pattern is. The purpose of a sewing pattern is to help you to create something like clothing or something like that with ease. It's like your guide. It'll have all your instructions and everything you need on it to be able to make that thing. Um, and also, before you start cutting out the pattern, you need to figure out what size you are. And so you'll measure yourself or the person that you're making the clothing for. And on the back, there'll be a sizing chart. And as you can see, I've already measured myself, figured out what size I am. As you can see, I don't fit into one size. I don't know anybody who does, and that's okay. How you work around that is I like to just cut out the biggest size that I measure at because it is so much easier to take things in than to take things out. So then you'll find this tissue paper like stuff, you'll cut out the size that you need, and there'll be all these markings on it, and you need to know what they mean. So the first one we're going to discuss is called, well, it's an important one to remember, really easy to forget though. It's called the grain line. It's just this arrow-like thing right here. And what the grain line does is it helps you line up your piece correctly with the grains of the fabric. And it's really important to line that up because when you wash your shirt or your dress or whatever you've made, one part might shrink just a little bit differently than the other, and it will make it look kind of awkward. You don't want that. That's the grain line. The second line is the fold line. It looks kind of like the grain line, except for the arrows are pointing to the edge of the piece. When you start to cut out your fabric, you're going to have to fold it in half so that you have two of everything. Well, some of the pieces, you just want one big piece that is symmetrical on both sides, and you don't want to see them going right down the middle, like of the front of your dress, because that would look really awkward. So you'll put that line right against the fold, and you'll be able to cut that out, and it makes it so much easier. The next thing, you'll see these little triangles on the edge, and these are the notches. When you start cutting out your fabric, you're going to be cutting along this line. You get to the notch, you're going to want to cut a little triangle out like so. Or you can cut in, but I prefer to cut outward because I'm afraid I'm going to cut too far in and then have a hole in my finished piece. And that would be really annoying. But there are corresponding notches on all the pieces. You line those up to know that you're sewing on the correct spot, sewing it straight, and it will turn out the way you want. Something similar to the notches is the dots. They're just these little tiny circles, and what you'll do with those is you'll put, like a little mark where you can use chalk, you can use a pencil, you can use a special fabric pen, whatever you have, and you'll put a dot right where these dots are on your fabric, and they'll line up with dots on another piece of fabric. This pattern I have in particular is to help you line up the pieces and tell you when to stop sewing on those pieces if you wanted to put like a slit in the skirt. And the last one, and probably the trickiest one to do, takes a little bit of practice, is a dart. That's what these little triangles are up here for. You'll see that we have the dots up here again, and they will correspond with one another to make a dart. You see those more commonly in women's clothing because it gives the shirt or the dress or whatever it is, it gives it more shape and it makes it more fitted to that person's body. So now you know all these really cool things about sewing patterns, how to read them, how to use them. Now you can create anything you want. So I wish you happy sewing!